Hi everyone, I'm Jillian from the land of midnight baking, and this is the first in what I hope is going to be a series on recipe reviews. So I've decided to start off with Great British Baking Show or the Great British Bake Off, depending on which side of the Atlantic you're on, technical challenges. And I've started with Paul Hollywood's baguettes. So why am I starting with baguettes? It's because everybody's had bread before, so we should all know what it tastes like. There aren't very many ingredients, so it should be pretty simple to shop for. And it doesn't require a whole lot of complicated kitchen hardware. So if you've never made bread before, this is probably a good place to start. Of course, the day that I decided to start filming these challenges, our city issued a citywide boil notice, which means we have to boil all of our water for consumption and for rinsing our dishes and even feeding to our pets, which in the long scale of things is just kind of an inconvenience. It's not that bad, and we're going to count our blessings. But anyway, here's the recipe. Okay, here's the ingredients. The olive oil is for lubricating your Tupperware. There's the salt and the yeast and the flour and the water, which I tried to measure out 370 milliliters as well as I could, because my container doesn't have a measurement for 370. Here's the yeast. It's 7 grams instead of 10 grams, but I'm not going to open up another packet of yeast just to use 3 grams of it. Here's the process of lubricating your plastic container. This is for the dough to rest in after you finish mixing it and kneading it for the 5 to 7 minutes it says in the recipe. This is a little bit bigger than what the recipe calls for. It's actually a 3.07 liter container instead of a 2.4 liter container, but I don't think it matters that much. You just need something big and square that you can get olive oil into all the nooks and crannies in, so your dough doesn't stick. There it is. So now we are weighing out the ingredients. I'm using a digital scale. You don't have to use a digital scale, I suppose, but it's probably better if you do because you can get more accurate measurements. The recipe calls for 10 grams of salt, and I only used 7 because I only used 7 grams of yeast. So that made sense to me. I don't know if that's like chemically or mathematically what you're supposed to do, but that's what I did. Here's my mixer. Then you just dump all of your dry ingredients into your mixer fitted with a dough hook. If you don't have a mixer, you can just stir by hand with a wooden spoon. You'll get a nice workout, I guess. The mixer makes it easier. Then you pour in about 3/4 of the water and you mix it until a dough forms. Then you kick it to medium. Once the dough is pretty much formed, then you slowly add the rest of the water. I didn't quite add it slowly enough because you can see it's kind of getting to look like library paste, which you don't want. So if you're going to follow this recipe, add the water slower than I did. Then you mix it for 5 to 7 minutes. I mixed it for 7 minutes. And you can see it forms a nice little ball of dough after your 7 minutes of mixing. And then when that is done, you'll turn the mixer off and you'll put it inside your Tupperware container for an hour. Okay, so after the hour is done, you're going to flour your board. I'm using a baking mat. Then you turn the dough out on the board. You try to be really gentle with it because you want all the air that has accumulated inside the dough, you want that to stay there. You don't want to dissipate any of it. So you're going to cut it into 4 equal pieces. Probably supposed to do this lengthwise, but I did not do that. I did it the easy way. I just divided it into quarters. Should probably not do this. You should probably just divide it lengthwise. But oh well, everything turns out fine in the end. It's bread. So then you're going to kind of make a little snake out of each of them. You want to try to fold it so that the part of the bread that was up, facing up in the plastic container, is also facing up after you finish rolling it into a snake. So you want the little seam that you make to be on the bottom. They just have to be roughly the same size. And then you're supposed to use a couché. I don't have a couché, so I just use parchment paper, and you rest it for another hour. And then you put it on your baking sheets. The recipe doesn't actually say whether you should use baking sheets or whether the baking sheets should be lined or greased with anything. But I just took my my parchment paper couché and I cut it to fit the pans. So as you can see, that water can steam up a lot. So be careful and watch yourself. The steam is supposed to create a crust on the bread, like a shiny, glossy crust. I didn't see that effect, but maybe you might. So it goes in the oven for 20 to 25 minutes. I left those in for 21. It was not long enough because they're not done. You can see that they're a little bit pale, but I didn't leave them in the oven any longer. I just put the other ones in. And the other ones I left in for about 27 minutes, I believe, and they turned out much better. Close to it though. That is the underbaked one. It's underbaked on both sides. And this one's the better baked one.
Bring it a little closer to the camera.
Got a better crust on it. It's a little better baked. Has more holes. Still not quite right. That's the underbaked one. Crust is really small and thin. Better baked one has a better crust. Still not quite right.
Are you about to try it?
Mm-hmm. So that's the underbaked one. Not bad. It's fine. And this one is a better one. Much better. Yeah, that's much better. Closer, but still not quite right. So, that was Paul Hollywood's baguette recipe. Is it worthwhile? Well, yeah. It's a simple bread recipe. It's no frills. There's not very many ingredients. There's nothing to hide behind. It's a pretty good assessment of what bread should taste like. I'm not really a bread maker, but my loaves came out halfway decent, and I imagine if you're better at making bread, yours are going to taste even better. So it's kind of a recipe of measurement. The better you are at making bread, the better they're going to taste. But even if you totally suck at making bread, it's still going to taste good. So that's pretty much it for this recipe. My full review is on my blog, which will be linked in the description below. If you like this review and you want to see more, you can subscribe. I will try to have another video next week. We're trying to just see how these reviews go, and if people enjoy them, I'll make them as regularly as I can. So that's it. See you guys later. Bye. Bake Off technical challenges, and The first one that I'm going to try is Spock. Hi, Spock. Hi, kitten. I'm here. Hi. Oh, hi, kisses. Hi. Do you think that you could get down? Oh, would it be too much trouble for you to get down? Hi.